Okay, next is the next type of research according to the levels of investigation is the descriptive research. Descriptive research. Now, descriptive research is also one of the main classification or one of the examples of quantitative research. Now, as taught in the previous video presentation, okay, descriptive research study the relationships. It studied the relationships between variables. So, meaning to say it has a higher level of investigation. It describes, okay? It describes what the relationship among variables look like. However, it does not, okay? It does not explain why it happens. Why it happens. So, meaning to say, descriptive research answers the questions what, how, when, where, but never the question why. Okay? So, meaning to say, descriptive research can describe the relationship without explaining why it happens. Okay? And this descriptive research can be used in correlational research. So later on, we will try to differentiate the different kinds of quantitative research. But first, let us focus on descriptive research as a type of research according to the level of investigation. So, when we say relationships, okay, when we have relationships, meaning to say it is still a broad term. So to discuss the different relationships, we have to discuss its different types. So we have the different types of relationships. Okay? So let us try to explain it or elaborate it more. So the different types of relationships. So let's say in this one, so number one, we have the first type of relationship. Let's say we have the relationship. Okay, we studied the relationship. Relationship between the IQ and the general weighted average of a person. So, in the x-axis of our graph or of the graphical representation of the relationship, we present the independent variable. And what is that independent variable? It is the IQ. While in the y-axis of our relationship graph, we present the dependent variable. And what is the dependent variable? The GWA. So meaning to say, the GWA depends on the level of IQ of the person. Now, let's say this is the scenario. So, let's say that the IQ of the person is near 1. So, the IQ of the person is at 1. The GWA can be relatively low also. So, meaning to say, the higher the IQ, the higher the GWA. Okay? And with this representation, we can draw a graph from it. Okay? So, this graph represents that the higher the IQ, the higher the GWA. And this graph, okay, or this type of relationship will be known as direct proportional relationship. Okay, so it is called direct proportional relationship. So meaning to say, in direct proportional relationship, as the x Okay? As the x increases, the y also increases. Okay? So that is the essence of direct proportional relationship. Now, let us proceed to the type of relationship number 2. Okay? So, let's say that the variables present to describe the type of relationship number 2 is the relationship between the IQ and the number of errors in an exam. Let's say that these are the variables. These two are the variables. So, the independent variable is the IQ, obviously. Then, the dependent variable is the number of errors. Okay? Number of errors in an exam. So, let's say that, for instance that you have, or the person has the higher or achieve a high amount of error in an exam. So, meaning to say, his or her IQ will be also relatively low. It can be in the 0, 1, 2, 3. So, meaning to say, as the number of error increases, the IQ decreases. Okay? So, meaning to say, there is an indirect or inverse relationship. So, this will be called as indirect or inverse proportional relationship. Now, in indirect or inverse proportional relationship, as the x increases, the y decreases. Okay? Or as the x decreases, the y increases. Okay? So, something we forgot with the direct proportional relationship, as the x increases, the y increases. This is also the same as the y increases, the x increases. As the x decreases, the y decreases. Okay? As the y decreases, the x decreases. So, in indirect or inverse proportional, as the x increases, the y decreases. As the x decreases, the y increases. So, that is the main difference. Okay? Now, these two, direct proportional and indirect inverse proportional, notice that the graph is represented by a line. Okay? So, a relationship that is represented by a line, okay, will be known as linear. Okay? It will be known as linear relationship. So, how do we define linear relationship? Okay? Linear relationship are the types of relationship that can be represented by a line in a graph. Okay, so we have two, direct proportional and indirect or inverse proportional. So, next, we have relationship number 3. So, let's say in relationship number 3, we have these two variables. The relationship between the IQ and the height. Okay, so the dependent variable is the independent variable rather is the IQ. Then the dependent variable is the height. Okay. So let's say that the IQ of the person is at 1, but his or her height is also low. Let's say that the IQ of the person is at 2, but he is tall. Let's say that the IQ of the person is at 3, but he is just at the moderate height. And so on and so forth. So as we graph these dots, okay, can we say that there is a good relationship between the height and the IQ? Is there a significant relationship? Is there a connection? Because as we can see as the graph, it is inconsistent. Okay? So, meaning to say, a graph that has no connection at all will be known as a scattered relationship. Because, as we can see, the representations are scattered. Okay? In scattered relationship, there is no relationship at all. There is no connection between the two variables. Okay? So that is the essence of scattered or no relationship. Okay? So for the fourth one, okay, for the fourth type of relationship, let us have this example. Let's suppose that we have the relationship between the age and the memory of the person. Okay, so this one, let's say this one is at the age of 0 and at the age of 100. Okay, so let's try to represent this graph. So when you are at age 0 or just a 1 month old, 2 months old, just a baby, your memory is just very low. Okay? But as you grow older, your memory becomes higher. Okay? As you grow older. Something about, let's say, in the age of 50s. Okay? So that is the middle age. However, as you grow older and older and older as a senior citizen, your memory becomes lower again. Okay? So, meaning there is a significant relationship between the age and the memory. Okay? So, let us have another example. Let's say we are to determine the relationship between the time and the price of an item. Okay? So, see. So, let's say the first time it was released in the public, the price is still higher. But as the time goes on, prices decrease. There will be have discounts whatsoever. Okay? But once the item reach its antiquity, the time of antiquity, the time it becomes antique or a vintage item, the price becomes higher again. Okay? So these two relationships will be known as curvilinear relationship. Okay? Curvilinear relationship. Why? Because the representation of the graph is curvilinear. So that will be the main types of relationships when it comes to the descriptive research. Now, these graphs, okay, are used to show demographics. Okay, these graphs are used to show demographics. So, this graph of direct proportional, inverse proportional, no relationship, and curvilinear, these are used in demographics. And demographics is used in correlational research. Correlational research. Okay. In correlational research, okay, let us try to write it down. Whenever we say correlational research, it is different to descriptive research. Why? Because correlational research studies the association between variables. It studies the connection between variables. Whereas in descriptive research, we just identify or we just describe the type of relationship. However, we do not associate it on one variable to another. So that is the main difference between descriptive and correlational research. Okay? Okay. So, in descriptive research, it only states if there is an existing relationship between the two variables. Okay? So, that is the main essence of descriptive research. So, let us have it once more. Descriptive research studies the relationship between variables. It describes what the relationship among variables look like. However, it does not explain why. Okay? It only states if there is an existing relationship. Okay? It answers the questions what, how, when, and where, but not the question why. So in our next video presentation, we are now to discuss, okay, the last type of research according to the level of investigation, which is the experimental research.